team as a whole, so that'll be pretty interesting here. And yeah, now we do have Bulba here. How's it going, man?
Hey, doing well.
So, how about those games, man? Especially that last one, Clockwork all over the place. That must have felt good.
Yeah, it's a fun hero to play have a if you have a good start.
Most definitely. And
Which usually happens if you get a solo lane.
yeah, one versus
Right.
one versus the Nature's Prophet. You even started off with a kill of your own. How'd that start out?
Well, you have when you play Clockwork in a solo lane, you have to abuse how Cogs work. So I just kept spamming him with the Cogs, and he had no mana. And then finally, I just went upon him and manned up, and I cogged him in, and I just attacked him. And then I chased him down at the tower, and then he died.
Sweet. And of course, that gives you a great start. I mean, getting the level advantage and then pursuing from there. You were able to transition into the other lanes to help them out really early on. So, other than your early start up against the Nature's Prophet, do you have any other thoughts on how your game started out? Obviously, we saw pretty well how it transitioned, but.
Um, the first split kind of screwed up our tri lane. The first split on the Rubik in the jungle, and then Nake's got the first split, so that means he automatically gets a boots. So it's literally impossible. And the three heroes we had can't really do much to a Nake's in the lane. Like he can just sit at the lane and attack, because a Rubik can lift him up, and then a PL can just attack him, but Kodo can't really do anything. So he already got first blood, so he had extra gold, and he had the extra the boots, and then that lane is basically lost. But I don't think they played the lane right, because even though we also kind of died a bit, they also died. So in the end, it wasn't that bad off, even though Nake's got a lot of farm. But, yeah, so that was basically it.
Yeah, a lot of back and forth early on, but it kind of negated itself out to an extent there. But yeah, the change in factor was really when you came out to play, when you were going for those long range hook shots and really finding kills left and right. Question from the chat is how you manage your mana early on as a solo Clockwork?
Well, Cogs actually doesn't take that much mana. Uh, so it's just using, and I always rush bottle. So it's just using Cogs and Rocket in the lane. And then once I don't like other people's builds when they don't max the first spell, the battery assault, because I think that's the best spell early on for Clockwork. You see people going like 1-4-4-1, but I think it should always be something like 4-2, 4-2, 2, and then 1, like at that level. So
Okay, so just a little bit of extra oomph for the cogs. That's kind of what you're thinking about there.
if you're soloing, you should get level 2 of Cogs. If you're offlaning versus tri-lane, you should get level 1 Cogs and max your other two spells.
Okay.
But if you solo, the jump in damage that Cogs mana burns from level 1 to 2 is worth getting. It's kind of like the bounty hunter concept, where the jump is worth it. Where with the toss, the shuriken toss, it like doubles in damage.
So, kind of the way the draft played on out, pretty much you guys had a situation where they could either pressure the Phantom Lancer down on bottom because it's a Phantom Lancer and he has amazing late game, or they could have gone a defensive trial and sent you 1 versus 3. Is that kind of the idea behind it, where you have to make them choose between a rock and a hard place, where there's either a 1 versus 1 matchup that the Clockwork's going to win, or a 3 versus 3 that is going to put pressure out?
Theoretically, in that lane, the Furon when usually safe lane lanes, they thought they would win their tri lane, especially after first blood. They thought mid is a wash regardless, and then they assumed the Furon would do well, because theoretically the Furon on the safe lane is really strong solo because of the two the treants. Like treants in Dota 2 doesn't spam aggro. Like in Dota 1, how treants worked was that when you send your treants on an enemy hero, your entire creep wave would aggro your wave. But in Dota 2, how it works is if you send treants on an enemy hero, your creeps don't do anything. And I think that's a bug. But because of that, Furon can do really well versus most solos, except maybe like Bear or Broodmother or some Weaver or something like that.
Interesting.
But so Furon regardless was gonna farm in that lane. Then yeah, so they just wanted to win their tri lane, and they wanted Furon to TP down to get kills or push the tower early. So and then since they're dire, they wanted a Roshan early. They have Leshrac Edict for that, and they have enough They have enough damage from Nakes and the Furon trees.
So, going on into game two, you guys had some issues making things happen. It was another try versus try situation, but it seemed to be working in a completely different fashion. What would you say you guys did wrong in that previous game?
Um, Game two,
Mm-hmm.
okay, our bottom lane didn't go well. The PL got two early kills, but if you notice the game, he actually was kind of shut down later. He got the kills, but he didn't get that much farm in the lane, because
Mm-hmm.
it's the same concept of like what they did to us when they send the Nakes versus the PL. The Nakes does decent at farming in the lane versus the PL. The problem was they had kind of two defensive supports, and our tri lane isn't. It's our tri lane is like okay, it's not amazing. Like it's kind of a harassing trial, and it's hard for us to really kill them or go on them. And if we make a mistake, they can capitalize on it because of how PL is. PL in the lane, it's if the other team makes a mistake, you have such high base agility, you can easily kill off a support. And even if you trade and then PL gets a kill, it's always worth it. And Bane is a really good defensive support. It's kind of like Shadow Demon, and THD is also really good as a
Mm-hmm.
defensive support. So the problem is even though after that we went around and we got our towers, we got Roshan, and we had a mech and we had our core items like Bear had Armlet, Nyx had Armlet, and we had mech, and we should have. I felt we should have won that game, but we had a few bad fights.
Mm-hmm.
There was a miscommunication in the bottom. We killed Puck with the roar, and then we went inside the base, and then there was a miscommunication there,
Yeah.
and then they 5-0'd us, and then we did another really bad thing where me, Fluff, and Mike died at the tier 2,
Yeah.
so that was like kind of a team fault where we messed up in that tier 3, and then we messed up in the tier 2,
Yeah.
and
The
then
the five
they
zero and
just
3-0 really seemed to make it pretty much just impossible to come back from. Do you think that you could have, or
um it's really hard. It would have had to go into like I don't think we can. The thing of the thing about PO is that even he summons all these illusions and he's just gonna split push us. And Puck had a lot of items too at that stage because
mm-hmm.
of all the fight. But as soon as that team fight happened where we died twice and we just fed them so much gold, it was basically over. But I felt if that didn't happen, we should have won that game
Sure.
if you look at the goal graph and regardless, unless we totally screw up. The problem is they have heroes that we can't mess up first because they have mass AoE. If you saw their first three picks, it was Mag, Puck, THD, and the synergy between those three heroes are really strong if we mess up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that puck pickup, it almost seemed like that's something that you guys were looking forward to pick up for yourselves if they hadn't drafted it in that second phase that they're picking. Is that something that's Korok would have loved to pick up against the Magnus?
Puck is always a good hero, but uh, Beastmaster works better with our strat
Okay.
that we had there because of the aura, and the problem with I do think Puck is like really popular right now in the Western European scene, but I do think he's overrated. But in these like Puck is a hero, he's really good in these like small engages and fights, and he's good at counter initiating and stuff like that. And we see a lot of that in the like how the European and North American teams play, and that's why I think he's such a strong hero because with just one blink and then silence, you just mess up a gank or you mess up a little skirmish, and you have like he's good at picking people off and split pushing and stuff like that. So that's why he's like really strong right now in
Sure.
the European, while he's not as strong in the other scenes because it's different. Like Puck without a blink dagger is really useless. Like if you think about it, like okay, he has his coil, he has his silence, he has his spell, but the strength with Puck comes with that blink dagger. And if your other team puts enough pressure before that Puck gets a blink dagger, or if you've already got a significant gold advantage before this Puck can leave mid lane and try to do something, it's different. That's why like these solos like Mag and Beast are kind of better.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in that situation there. Especially you mentioned the aura for the lone druid and the lifestealer. They got a lot out of that there. But one thing they opted for, like we saw in MKB and Basher type builds more so than like a Maelstrom Mjolnir type thing. Was that because you guys were trying to look for single target pickoffs on the PL before the illusions could get up?
Oh, what did you say?
The fact that they didn't go
My
for the
cutoff.
no problem. Your carries were going for Maelstrom, not going for Maelstrom or Mjolnir. They went for MKBs and Bashers. Were you guys looking for more single target pickoffs rather than that of burning down the illusions?
Well, there's only like few items that the bear could go the second game. Like bear right now, he's always armlet into some basher into something else, and we needed to finish the game early. We don't want to go like game where it's a PL mag, which is basically auto lose at the late stage.
Hmm.
So we needed to finish the game early, and that's like burst damage, and it's just like it's overall just good.
Yeah. I always kind of thought that it was a trade off between the Armlet or the Maelstrom. Why do you think it's always got to be Armlet now?
It's the regen and the armor are what make Armlet so like really strong on bear,
Hmm.
because when you're sieging a tower, your bear is regenning from the armlet, and your bear has the armor from the armlet. But without an armlet, your bear would need the AC or something, and the damage is actually quite decent.
Sure.
So I think that's why it's such a strong item. And you can go armlet into maelstrom, which is still good. You have like two options where you can go armlet into a maelstrom or armlet into a basher, and it depends what you want to do. With maelstrom, you're gonna farm more. You're gonna farm the creep waves faster.
Hmm.
But with the basher, you're kind of just wanting to push. And Silbear right now is played like he's kind of sacked early game. Usually teams just offlane him, and then he kind of gets a late armlet, and then you want to go the basher because you're not going to be the main one. Like how NTH plays him, they play him with like an offlane druid and then a safe lane gyro or a safe lane specter or a safe lane whatever. So they kind of he's like suddenly they have this lone druid in the offlane that has an armlet, and he's as strong as like a lone druid. He's just strong enough to push, and he has armor, and his bear's really tanky.
Sure. Okay. So one comment you made earlier was that, yeah, specifically you're referencing Game 3 in this case, but you said that the mid matchup was kind of a wash there. In both the game with the Storm Spirit and with the Night Stalker, Korok was having some issues getting off the ground. There was a lot of early gank pressure out, and he did eventually rebound, just not as much as obviously you guys would prefer. Why do you feel that it wasn't really that big of a factor, specifically for Night Stalker?
The first game, it was with what they had. They had these two utility ganking supports, kind of, and it was our call. It was our mistake to not warn him that the Shadow Demon got an invis top. It was kind of miscommunication, and then he died, and then they kept roaming him. So even the problem is, even though he died, they didn't have any they didn't have any defense. They had a really greedy lineup. They had Void Bear, and they had no besides Rubik Fade Bolt and Mag Shockwave. They didn't have any like way to stop us from just manning up on the tower with a Chen and Nakes and Clockwork. And with Clockwork is really good at that situation because you can hook behind the tower and you can siege it easier. Like it's really hard for a team that's playing versus a Nyx and a Clockwork and a Storm to defend towers early
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
and then you snowball when you get the early towers. And we can do that with any red lineup. It's just how you play. Like any lineup can do that, but their lineup was greedy and we had to end it early because they had Nakes, LD, and Mag. I mean, they had Void,
Void, yeah.
LD, and Mag, and it was we had to finish early.
Hmm.
And then the third game, Night Stalker, he's kind of like he's gonna get that BKB no matter what, and regardless, he's gonna like farm, you know. So, it's just like you have to, even though he died, and obviously Court knows a mistake, but is regardless, like he came back later with the BKB and Night Stalker in that game, we it was more like a farming role, just tanky, kind of like what the Clockwork was doing. We just run both, me and him just both run in and we kind of disrupt the fight and let the PL illusions stack up and then they can't do anything.
Sure, sure. Okay. So yeah, that just kind of explains that whole mentality there. I always thought that mid matchups were getting more and more focused, but in this recent a couple of matches that I've been seeing, it seems to be kind of taking less and less relevance. So I don't know. It kind of it depends on the compositions of the drafts and things along those lines. As far as drafting goes, they kind of had that transition from what Fluff was drafting and now TC is. Is there any difference in the mentality, and is there any drafter that you prefer?
Fluff actually, if you read an interview a while back, he actually says that he prefers sitting in like the objective role, like where he can throw his input, and it's obviously him and TC are the main people that
Hmm.
pick, and Fluff as a person is like, if you know him, he's like constantly thinking about Dota. Like he's really smart in that aspect. Like he factors in all the little factors. It's the thing is, he kind of wanted to step down, and TC picks consistently. Like he picks more strategy, and then sometimes Fluff used to pick like he used to pick really well, and then suddenly it was like a weird game, and he didn't want to feel that kind of pressure. He just wanted to like give his really good input and stuff, and it's working better. because we're all like putting our own input, and then Fluff and TC are obviously like regardless if it's Fluff and TC drafting, it was always them both drafting. It's just that TC Fluff just wants to be like the non-picker role. Like he wants to sit by and tell TC, well, like this is my opinion on that, and then let TC make the adjustment.
Okay. And then you mentioned before that Fluff still kind of makes most of the in-game calls.
Um, yeah, it's mostly him, and it's hard to say right now. Like the in-game calls are depending on the on heroes right now. Like you have like a Kodal, and then you have a Rubik, and you have a like a Beastmaster. It has to be dependent on the Rubik and the Beastmaster to make the calls, because they're the heroes that can kill stuff and initiate and stuff like that. So it's also dependent on the heroes. And then if TC is playing Nags or Lone Druid and he wants to do something, he's gonna make that call. Like it's a team effort, but a lot of the time it's Fluff making calls too,
Sure.
like to back or something.
Makes sense. So a couple of questions from chat. People are wondering what suggestions you have. This is a completely different tone, by the way. But what suggestions you have for new players? People who are trying to learn to, get their fundamentals locked down, like last hitting and stuff like that. Do you have any advice specifically for them?
You have I said that before. I say it a lot. You should try and watch replays. I think that's the most like watching replays, watching maybe tournament replays, like getting a pass. Like you can just go down and buy a G1 League pass, which is obviously worth it, or a TPL pass, or any pass. Like you can buy it, and you can just watch the replays and watch like players play, because it's a lot of like mechanic. It's Dota's like in competitive Dota is like it's you can get far by copying. Like like there's ways like people expand. Like compare last year to how people played mid to now. There's like a lot of differences and stuff, and people have all improved, and that's why another reason why it's like more wash and stuff, like why more washes happen, because both players know right now like know what to do and stuff in those situations among the top teams.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing what to do, obviously practicing more and more. But I think based on what I did, I got a lot better watching replays of like top players and when I was like new to Dota than I did just playing pub games and not learning anything.
Sure. Okay, so that's pretty good advice there. Just watch it up, streams and in-game passes and all that kind of good stuff to try to glean a little bit of information in that regard. Somebody's asking about the fact that a lot of your matches seem to go kind of, if it's a best of 3, 2, and 1, whether you win or lose. It's just like that second game is, especially if you win a game, that second game generally has a different mentality going into it, like putting Korok on Lifestealers, a change of pace a little bit. I know you guys are really flexible in your 1, 2, and 3 roles, but is there a difference in your mindsets going on into a game 2 if you've already taken a game 1 win?
Um, well, there's really not. You have to play the same game, and you can't let the first game influence you. And the second game we purely lost because of a few bad fights, and I think we were in the lead that game. Like we should have won that, but we kind of played the lanes wrong, and we played the bottom lane wrong, I think, or we made a mistake in the bottom lane, and we made a bad mistake in fights. So we can't let that bog us down.
Sure. Okay. So you think it was more just like you mentioned before, communication errors and things like that, more so than having mentality to experiment and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, definitely. It should be a lot of. It should be mostly communication that we made that, like determining what a game happened. Obviously, if you're won a game, you're kind of more confident too, and you're momentum based. So, but yeah, we lost, and yeah, that's basically about the second game.
Yeah, we talked about game 2 quite a bit. So just that kind of mentality, as you mentioned it before. But other things beyond this past match, what are you guys looking at in the future? Are you guys looking at? I know the IXDL is doing pretty good for Mike and all that. Have you been jumping on that at all, or?
I play if I have free time. I'm really busy in the evenings with my voice kind of cracked, but I'm busy in the evenings with homework usually because my schedule is like really busy in the day and exams are coming up. But right now our primary goal is for the G1 qualifiers,
Yeah.
which are obviously really important, and it's going to come up within the following month.
So what do you think about the Asian scene as a whole? And as far as the qualifiers, what do you think your chances are for that one there?
I do think we have the easier side of the pool or whatever. NTH and Navi I think are by far the two best teams right now. in the European scene, and we didn't get either of them.
Hmm.
And NTH especially, they're on a roll after winning Star Ladder, and
Yeah.
they play really well. Like they have good players and they have good strategies. So I think we're confident in winning our top part, and we need to get ready for the three teams. I think, I mean, they're all. I feel like all the teams can beat each other. It's kind of funny, but it depends a lot. Like this qualifiers are gonna depend a lot on strategies and who executes them better, which I think Dota's most importantly about right now.
Okay. Sure. Um, as far as this game, I'm not sure if you knew, but either way, this game actually guarantees your placement in the playoffs for the Premier League here. You could, I mean, the seeding is still up for grabs there, whether you're going to be first, second, third, whatever. But as far as being in the playoffs, that is a 100% guaranteed thing. So looking at that and the other teams that have been picking up the pace in towards the playoffs, is there any team that you think is kind of the team to beat there, or you guys think that that might be you?
Who are the other top three teams right now?
Right now, pulling it on up, it is actually Fnatic, Empire, and Dignitas.
Fnatic, Empire, and Dignitas, and I think those are the strongest teams. So any of those teams, I think of those three teams, the strongest right now is isn't VP in it also?
Virtus.pro just got recently displaced by Dignitas, but they have played one less game, so they have a pretty good chance for vying for that fourth or third or fourth slot as well. So,
I think any of the top teams in TPL can win each other, depending on the day. But right now, I think the strongest team besides us is Virtus Pro or Fnatic. Both those teams right now.
okay.
And Dignitas has actually been playing. They had a new roster change and they've been practicing. So I haven't seen too much out of them, but they did win besides the RDL, but they did win that pretty well. So they're pretty strong.
Definitely. So a lot of potential, but it's kind of still a little bit of anybody's games. Have to move in closer to it to see who's actually going to be slotted before you guys are making preparations and kind of trying to research their strategies more directly.
Um, the it's like most of the teams we have a general sense of what they like,
Sure.
and so it like any team can pull out anything on a normal day. Like I had before NTH they had their roster changed. I actually felt they were the most passive team in Europe by
Hmm.
far, and recently they've kind of become the most aggressive team, which is kind of funny. They've become like both extreme sides. They like to push early. So the entire style changes on depending on what the players like. So it's hard to say like it's hard to like go oh, this team is gonna do that. So it's just we have to look at the general sense of what they pick and then estimate what they're gonna do or predict what they're gonna do.
Hmm. Most definitely. So I guess that's pretty much covers most of what I was looking at there for the coverage there. I mean, you're looking at the future, you're looking at qualifiers and the playoffs and all that, and you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to be up against there. But is there anything else that you want to cover as far as future stuff that you're not too certain about? I mean, international, but still a lot of rumor-based stuff as far as how that's going to go down, invites or qualifiers or all that stuff. Do you have any thoughts?
Um, international invites are gonna come up, which is kind of stressful. Like you want to obviously get in. All the teams are playing for this, but it's kind of cool that other things are popping up too, like this G1 League
Yeah.
qualifiers, which is pretty big, and the main tournaments or like the finals are coming up also, like D2O, TPL, yeah. So, and hopefully more and DreamHack also. So, but overall, it's obviously TI3 that is going to be the primary goal, and it's kind of getting like it's gonna. I think last year, the first at least the Chinese invites came out around this time. So
Okay, cool, cool. All right, well then, I guess that's gonna be it for me. Is there any shout-outs and stuff that you want to give?
I shout out to my team and its sponsors Barracuda, Razer, Twitch, and Shiny Things, aka Little Laugh Factory. And follow me at Liquid Boba, and then special shout out to my manager Bumblebee. He's, he's a really hard worker. And then a special shout out to Infinity and RTZ.
Cool.
That's it.
Sure, sure. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate getting a little bit information, insight for the match or things as a whole. So, really great games coming out of you guys up against Mousesports, taking the win 2-1, and congratulations on that, and good luck in your future events.
Thanks a lot.
See you.